Yeah, memorable moments or interesting stories that you can think of that happened during those times?
Well, not for me too much. I wasn't involved in the meetings and all that like some of the guys were.
But what about just the guys? Like, I mean, any funny stories over the years that you can think of? Like my father-in-law was telling one about Tiggy, coming in the dry. I don't know if you saw that, but in the dry machines and saying the big boss came in and said, "Do you know who I am?" And Tiggy's like, "Oh yeah, we got somebody here who doesn't know who he is." Like, little stories like that you can think
Well,
of.
I'm not thinking of them right now. Well, we had some good times, I'm telling you. Yeah, really
What about
good.
the party when tembec got started? Obviously, you went to that, the big dinner that they had, and
Well, what happened to me, I was working.
you were working.
I worked 16 hours that day to let a guy go to the party. I was 4 to 12. So I worked night shift too. So I worked 4 to 12, 12 to 8 so the guys can enjoy themselves.
That was very good
I
of
heard
you.
they had a good time there.
Yeah.
There was a lot of people and they went through the mill. We saw them all night.
Yeah.
But I wasn't lucky enough to go to the party.
Well, you worked. You were making getting those hard-earned dollars you needed from when the mill shut down, right?
That's right.
Now, how are you feeling, Vienny, as the 25th anniversary is approaching? What kind of emotions are coming
Oh,
up?
that's going to be beautiful, and the way they're doing, I got my invitation there, and I'm answering for the 3 days, and I think we'll meet a lot of people that are gone from here. They'll be back for the party and talk about old times and good times.
Yeah.
And but some people are going to find out what was going on, and I'm glad.
Do you think it's important for a lot of the young employees now to really grasp Tembec's history and maybe learn from the past today?
I think they should. They should, like a lot of young guys, they don't believe what we went through. It's pretty tough. I like to tell them, well, you better watch yourself. It could happen again, but they don't believe that. But I hope it doesn't. I don't think it will, though. I don't wish that upon anybody.
But be thankful that you have your job, work at it. We're very thankful here in Temiskaming that the Tembec has grown as much as it has over the past 25 years, and hopefully that will continue for another 25.
I hope so, and I hope we keep our president here for another 30 years. Because he's really good for Temiskaming, and Tembec has been very good. We got a nice center. We can thank Tembec a little bit for that too.
And you have your sons working. Both of your sons are working here.
2 of them. Very proud of them.
Yeah.
They're doing well with Tembec.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's important. Tembec has always been. It's always been community-oriented, family-oriented, and we have a lot of new people coming in now from other places, which is great. It's adding to the mix. But I think it's important that we do this show so that they know about, everything that you guys went through, because I'm sure it wasn't an easy time.
No, it was nothing easy, but it turned out pretty good for my family.
Nothing good comes easy, right?
No, and it turned out good for my family, and I think a lot of other families too. And Tembec is really good for kids going to school. That they have scholarships and they have it all over their business, and they're doing great with that. I think that's a good thing.
Any notable mentions at all of people that you've worked with over the years that you'd like to mention, Vienny? Maybe some that you worked with that have passed on, or some that that were kind of maybe, I don't know how you'd say it, people that you looked up to when you were young and starting out.
Well, in the bleachery myself, I worked with good guys there, and one that didn't last long in his retirement was Mr. Nelson Oldman. He really helped me out. In the younger days, I was a little young and I didn't listen to everything, but he helped me out. That's one guy. Don Wilson, Bill Brazo was one of them, Oscar Fink, all good guys to help you out. And I thank them now. But
yeah, we'll remember them as we celebrate the 25th.
That's right, I hope so.
Yeah. So thank you very much. Is there anything else that you wanted to add before we wrap up at all?
Well, on this, I'd like to thank the woman that stayed in town while their men were gone. They have something they worked hard for the mill too. Not only the men that were involved, the women that were left alone for months, and I think my wife did a great job.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point to bring up. The women haven't been mentioned very much.
Yes, they did well, so we were lucky.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much for doing the interview. I appreciate it.
Thank you too. Thank you for inviting me.
We're here now with Robert Desjardins, who is an operating mechanic at Tembec. And Robert has been here for the 25 years. It'll be 25 years in November, right?
That's right, November 9th.
Okay. Now, how did you start working at Tembec? How did that all come about?
First of all, I was down south, okay, when the mill was shut down, and I was brought back up by my parents, told that the mill was starting back up, and they asked me if I was willing to invest in Tembec. So I told them yes. So I came up, invested my $500 like everybody, and on November the 9th I was hired as an oiler.
Okay.
And then from there on, progressed up to an operating mechanic.
Now, there's a rich history in your family of well, not just Tembec, but of the mill that's been here.
This mill here, my grandfather worked here for 50 years. He retired after 50 years seniority. My dad retired after 42 years seniority, and he retired with tembec after 19 years of seniority. I've been here almost 25 years. My two sons are here. They've been here for 5 years. So there's quite a few years of seniority here.
Exactly. The family's been well employed through this mill.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, what kind of feelings are you having as we reach the 25th anniversary?
Well, I guess it's going to be a big celebration.
Can you believe 25 years has gone by?
No. It went so fast, it's unreal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you raise your family. I've been married 25 years this year.
Okay.
Everything is 25 for me this year. So
that's a big number for you.
Big number, yeah.
Now, when you first started working at the mill, and you had worked at other places besides the mill, can you compare, like
No.
but the camaraderie of the men here to get this mill back up and running again must have been different than.
Altogether different than another place.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody pitched in. There's no such thing as an 8-hour shift. There's work till they get the mill started.
Mm-hmm.
And the salaries weren't that great, but it was good money. You were home. That was the main thing, being home.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we wanted this place to run.
Mm-hmm. And how did you feel about, did you feel you were taking a little bit of a risk when you invested? Were you kind of a little bit nervous about all this, or was just, we're going to get a job, we're back home? And
Being back home wasn't a risk.
no.
Okay, so that's why we came back.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So as we approach the 25th anniversary, though, like you must be feeling a little bit nostalgic, I'm sure, and happy that your children are working here as well. Hoping that it goes another 25 years?
Hoping it goes another 25 and 50 if it's possible. We're also looking forward to retiring and watching our great children, grandchildren work here too, if it's possible.
Yeah. You never know. The history has been here.
That's right.
Excellent.
Over 150 years almost.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you doing the interview.
Okay, thank you very much.
We are here now with Mike Blackmore, who is an operating mechanic at the mill, and Mike has been here for it'll be 25 years in December.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And when you first started working at the mill, what did you do?
I first started as a machinist. I was a machinist before. When the mill had started up, I came here as a machinist. And after about 3 months, the old gentleman that was on pumps was retiring, so they threw me on pumps. And I've been on pumps. Well, I went on pumps for 7 years, and I went on management for 14 years, and then I came back on pumps. I've been here back in for another 4 years.
Okay. Now, there's history in your family as well with the mill. Your dad, I understand, worked. Did he work for Tembec and CIP?
Yeah, he works at CIP here, and then when CIP shut down, he went down to Nova Scotia, and he came back here when Tembec started back up.
Where were you before you started working at Tembec?
I worked for the government of Ontario.
Oh, really? So this was a big change.
Yeah, I worked for the highways, Department of Highways.
Okay. And when you heard Tembec was starting back up again, you just thought it was an opportunity for you? Like, what prompted you to come back?
Well, I was living in Thorn, and I just got married, and with the highways, you're on the road all the time. So I figured I had a previous experience as a machinist, so I came back here as a machinist.
And here you are.
That's right, I'm still here. Great.
Can you believe it's been 25 years?
Not really. It seems just flying by.
And what about when you first started working? You must have noticed too, like the camaraderie among the men to get the mill started up again. It was I'm sure right back then you didn't think it was as historic as it is now, but what was the sense, the feeling of the men back then?
Well, lots of the guys had been out of work for a while, and they wanted to get the place going, and everybody did more than 100% to get the place working, get it going.
Is this something do you still see the dedication there today, or do you find it's over the years people are forgetting about our history?
I think there's a lot of people coming in that aren't from the area, and there's not so much of the dedication to those guys. Some of them seem to be just in here to pass the time until they get another job. We don't have it's not the dedication's not here like it used to be. The morale has gone down. It's not like it used to be.
So we really need it uplifting, and hopefully maybe with the 25th we can remind people.
Maybe this will bring it up, yeah.
Yeah. Now, how are you feeling as we're approaching the 25th anniversary here? Are you going to go and celebrate with everybody else, or is it just 25 years gone, so what?
Well, I'm planning on going and do a little bit of celebrating, yeah.
Good.
I don't mind that.
Good. And you feeling nostalgic at all as it's approaching?
I guess so.
Yeah.
I guess you could say that.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Well, we've heard some interesting stories from Vienna and from some of the men that are still working here at the mill. It's interesting to get both sides and, compare what the times were like then to now and how people are feeling as the 25th anniversary approaches. The men really worked together hard, and like I said earlier, this is a place where they got to rest a few minutes while they were doing those long hours to get the mill back up and running again. So thank you for watching from the shop lunchroom. I'm Anne-Marie Desjardins for Tembec 25 years then and now. Thanks for watching. As we go on our journey from then to now with regard to Tembec's history, I'm sure for many of you it's hard to believe that it's been 25 years since Tembec started up. I'm sure for many of you it was a time of great emotion, and you just weren't sure where the future was headed, and I'm sure you weren't expecting this 25 years later. Anyway, I'm sure a person that really feels the 25th anniversary coming is Frank Dettori, who is very instrumental, as you all know, in getting Tembec started. We're just getting ready to head into Frank's office to talk to him a little bit about the history of Tembec, his feelings over the last 25 years, and what we can expect in the future. Okay, maybe before we get started in talking about Tembec, we'll talk about your career prior to Tembec. What were you doing? You worked at CIP, I know, for a time being. What was your background, and what did you do?
I started out here in Temiskaming when I graduated from university and came here, worked for CIP. I worked here in a variety of jobs for about 3 years, then I left and went to work in a mining business with Texas Gulf Sulfur. I worked there for a couple of years, and then Bill Hughes, who was the general manager here, asked me to come back because they had a big project to convert the Temiskaming mill into either newsprint or craft or some project. And I had worked in construction. I was a construction manager and an operating manager up in actually a zinc mine. So they asked me to come back and handle the project. So I came back and was here for about a year or two. And then they basically, I guess it was around December of '71, I had a call back from Texas Gulf to go back and build a big smelter as a construction manager. But I like the pulp and paper industry. It's a lot more interesting than mining. And I went up at Christmas and declined the offer. Decided I would stay with CIP. January 31st, right in this office here, the head office people from New York and Montreal came in here and announced we're going to shut the mill down in 90 days. So obviously I was a little bit stressed and ticked off, I guess, to put it mildly. And I had worked on some projects where they were trying to sell the mill to Scott Paper for $1 and those kind of things. So I said to them, well, if you don't know how to run it, why don't you sell it to me for $1 and I'll organize with the employees and we'll make it run. And that's what started it.
That's how it all got started. Wow. Now, okay, so is that the 4 founders? Is there 4 founders of Tembec, I understand?
Well, there were 4 original founders that were in PSCD. It was a holding company, and then with the union owning the other half.
So this was basically you that got the ball rolling then with the buying the mill for the $1 and taking it over?
Well, we started with that. I guess it was in about February, and we talked to Dr. Taberge. Went to see him and said, I can organize. I talked to the union and the employees here. And they had $700,000 of severance pay. The company had to pay them. And I asked them, most of them, if they would sign a sheet and put the $700,000 in. We'd buy the company and restart and run it ourselves. And most of the employees agreed to do that. And then I approached Dr. Taberge, and we approached the government. And we didn't get anywhere because at the time the government thought I was a young kid and you know, in Temiskaming, if the biggest pulp and paper company in the world couldn't run it, how could some, you know, workers and some young engineer up in Temiskaming make it run? And I tried to convince them we had vision and we had commitment and all that stuff, but it didn't sell too well at that time. Now it sells. It didn't sell at that time. And they said, you need expertise management. So I talked to Jim Chandler and to Jack Stevens. Jim had been a manager at the time he was here, and Stevens was the guy that hired me back in the CIP days. They'd both been fired by CIP as part of the shakeup. So I asked them if they would join the group, and they said yes. And so then the 3 of us tried it for a couple of months and didn't get anywhere. In the meantime, I went to Latuque because I had a family to feed.
No kidding.
And then George Petty phoned one day, and we were looking for a marketing guy. And George phoned. He'd just been, he was working with another company and was sort of looking for something himself, and said, "I'll come on, but you've got to make me president." George was a fairly dominant type of person, and but he brought the necessary credibility we needed. So he came on as president and took on the sort of the leadership. And the rest of us had the business plan. We had everything ready. But George took the leadership at that time and provided the spark plug to get the thing going and convince the government to support us.
Wow, lots of commitment, and obviously a few doors slammed in the face. But like they say, nothing good comes easy. So when, like, obviously you were very young when all of this came about. You had a young family to feed, like you said. Now, in between, you said you went to Leduc, was it? How was that?
Well, CIP knew that I was involved in the group. They believed quite strongly that, and it was very open. I told them that I was part of the group to try to reactivate the mill. They said, "Fine, you got a great career with us. You stay with us. That project will never get started because we will never sell the mill." And they took that position for 11, 12 months until I think the union played a key role. The FTQ with LaBerge and some of the people went out and did blockades, and they took very strong public positions in Quebec, in Montreal. That created a public perception across Quebec that poor people trying to start up their own mill were being mistreated by large international corporations. Just remember, at that time there was the Vietnam War. There was lots of anti-American sentiment, so it was good timing.
Probably on all the emotions.
That's right, and there was a lot of socialism was coming in at the time, and anti-American big corporations. ITT had been involved in the overthrow of Allende in Chile, and so there was a lot of strong anti-American feeling. Here's the biggest pulp and paper company in the world, an American pulp and paper shutting down a small community in Quebec, which tended to be a little more socialist and sort of inclined towards democracy of the little guy. All that played very, very well, and actually was a factor that ended up, at the end of the day, Bourassa, who was the prime minister at the time, had little choice except to tell IP, "You are going to sell this mill to these people, or else we will take consequential action against your wood rights and whatnot." And so, in August of '73, the government took that position and formed Rexfor because IP refused to sell us the mill, and so Rexfor was created. The government bought the mill from IP in the morning, and in the afternoon turned around and sold it to us, so that all the protocol was followed, and that's how it got started. But a lot of it was due to political pressure brought on by the FTQ in Quebec.
So how did you feel at that time when all of a sudden now the mill was in your hands and you'd gone through all of this hard work to get it? What was the feeling like at the time?
Well, obviously it's there's lots of excitement when it happens. I think there was just the feeling of elation and a challenge. Now that we've gotten that far, and because it became such a battle to get there, then it became a question. Now you have to deliver, because there's a credibility issue now that you've gone through, created all this sort of social upheaval, then you'd better deliver the goods now. Otherwise, I think a lot of people were going to be let down and disappointed. So it created a hell of an incentive to succeed.
A lot of incentive, a lot of pressure too. I mean, obviously you must be one of those people that works well under pressure.
Oh, I don't get. I mean, I can get stressed about details, but after you do the best you can, I don't get too stressed about problems. I'm not saying they don't bother me. I'm a bit temperamental, but I don't think I suffer from what do you call it, pressure. Big decisions when that don't bother me.
Yeah. Okay. Now, maybe what we can do now is compare the mentality of the workers back then. Obviously, these are people who thought that their jobs were gone, or they fought for their jobs. They had young families at home. This was a one-industry town, still is, obviously. But what was the mentality like back then compared to today? Is it possible to draw the comparison?
Well, I think it's hard to draw the comparison because at the time there was emotional involvement. When today, I think the emotional involvement isn't anywhere near as strong, obviously. At the time, if you're unemployed for a year, your unemployment has run out, you're wondering where you're going to feed your family. I think people go through that today, but when you have a whole community, it always creates stress in the families. I mean, there were a lot of people that were gone on welfare. didn't know what to do. They were 45, 50 years old. Where do you go looking for a job? There were no jobs to go to anyway, except unless you were, a professional or a tradesman or something like that. So obviously, when this thing started, it provided a lot of hope for people. So obviously, there was a lot of dedication to make it work, because they knew if they didn't make it work, it'd be back in the same bind, if not worse. So I think there was an incentive there, an emotional attachment, because then it was their mill, they created it. It was emotionally stressful, so you become committed. It's like your baby, you've got to make sure it grows up and works. I think today you don't have that emotional attachment as much, but I still think there's a dedication and loyalty to the company here. I've seen it just in the last few weeks here, because we're having some problems here, as you know. And going out and talking even to the young employees and people, they say, well, it's all different today. I think employees still know a job's important. I mean, these are high-paid jobs. They know that it's in their interest to make this place work. So I see the same dedication, I think the same willingness to do the work. Obviously, the emotional attachment, isn't there, because they haven't gone through the sort of the stress. So I think that component is missing. But obviously, it can't be there, because you have to go through that experience.
Yeah, circumstances are different.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Did you ever think at the time when this was coming all about, when tembec was starting up, that it would ever become this big, Frank?
No, I don't think so. I think, there's a lot of people that figure you sit there because, I've always talked about having a vision and saying you've got to get people commitment where the company has to go, where people have to go. If you don't do that, I'm saying you've got to know where you're going first to get there. And so obviously we've always had a vision of where we want the company to go and whatnot. But was that vision of saying, we're going to be a $3 billion company per year in sales? No, it wasn't. I think I've always said, if you want to move a mountain, the best way to do it is one shovelful at a time. And so the objective may be to move the mountain, but you do it one day at a time. And I think that's the way it's worked. I think we've looked at the problems, fixed the problems. Once we've got that one done, you look at the next thing, and it sort of just evolved.
Okay, good. Sorry.
Although I think it's always driven by success that, we've always had, I think from where we grew, a philosophy, we don't like to lay off people. And so if you don't want to lay off people, how do you do that? You have to keep expanding. Otherwise, by evolution, you end up shrinking.
Oh, interesting concept. Never looked at it like that before. Now, how many other divisions of tembec are there that exist now today?
Well, in total, we have 26 different plants and entities out there today.
And just a brief description, like, well, what do they range from?
Well, we have the company runs in about 3 or 4, I guess you could say 4 divisions. One is obviously the pulp division, which is here and in Tartas and in France, and Smooth Rock Falls. We have the paperboard, which is here. We have lumber, which is the biggest one, is 16, 17 units across northwestern Quebec and in Ontario. That ranges from making 2x4s to making hardwood flooring to make it engineered products, laminated veneer lumber, pine boards, that type of thing, to OSB, I guess. And then we have the newsprint or publishing division, which makes newsprint and specialty papers for pocket books and newspapers, like the Toronto Star. And then we have the chemical division here that makes ethanol and lignin and PF resins and those kind of things.
It's amazing how many different markets there are out there, and as you go through the years, like you said, taking it one step at a time, how many you find as you go along, I guess.
Right.
I guess it's just a matter of knowing the market.
Well, part of it is, again, we've developed a strategy of integration, trying to integrate the company. We're saying you got to start from the forest that's here and then try to get value added out of the forest. So that's why we've gotten into hardwoods and into maple and all these kind of things, because there's a resource here. And the only way you're going to succeed is you've got to get the maximum value of that resource, because there's a fixed resource. You can't just go on and expand, as you can see right now with environmental pressures and just lack of wood. You have to do more with it. And again, that's part of evolution. I mean, the world moves ahead, and there's a lot of people that don't accept that. But the problem is, if you don't move ahead and keep developing, you disappear.
Okay, good point. Now, over the past 25 years, I'm sure there's been a lot of interesting things that have happened to you. Is there anything that sticks out in your mind over the past 25 years more than anything else?
Well, I think it's always been exciting. Every day, is an exciting day around here. So there's always a challenge, a problem to fix, or something. So I think that I enjoy it just as much today as I did 25 years ago. I think I've learned to cope with problems today, probably better than I used to. But I think not really. I mean, I'm sure there has been, but I can't think of them right now. Because, when I come into work, every day is exciting. Like, I find every day interesting. So.
Oh, that's good. That's good. We want you to be excited still coming to work. Now, maybe Tembec's like, would you say the biggest accomplishment of Tembec is Tembec itself? Just the startup of Tembec?
Yeah, I would think so, because I think up to that time, and even if you look at the old, what do you call it, National Film Board that was made, or some of the old documents, at the time, no company had ever survived in what they call a capital-intensive industry that was employee-owned or with employee participation. And so we had everyone saying, well, you're going to last a year, you're going to last 3 years. And so after a year, people said, well, you'll make it 3 years. And after 3 years, people said, well, nobody will make it 10 years. After 10 years, people said, well, geez, you're the only one that ever made it to 10 years. We think we served as a model to a lot of people, what I call people power, what people can do if they decide they're going to do something. And I think the biggest contribution that Tembec has done to Canada or whatever is obviously we've created 4,000 or 5,000 jobs over the years and bring in $1 billion and a half a year into the Canadian economy, which goes along paying taxes and whatnot for the rest of the Canadians. But I think the biggest thing is we've shown that with people with perseverance, people that want to get things done, how much you can accomplish if you with positive thinking, if you put your mind to it. I think that's the biggest contribution we've made.
Good. Now, where do you see Tembec in another 20? Could I say another 25 years? I don't know. That might be a little bit presumptuous, but